In a world filled with constant noise, where everyone seems eager to defend, justify, and explain themselves, there's a quiet wisdom that often goes unnoticed. It's the power of silence, a shield that doesn't just protect, but empowers us. When faced with opposition or hostility, we may feel the urge to speak out, to clarify, or to defend ourselves. But what if the greatest weapon we have in such moments is to say nothing at all? It might sound counterintuitive, especially in a world where speaking up is seen as strength. But what if real strength lies in knowing when silence is more powerful than words? Not every battle is yours to fight, and not every person deserves your explanation. The next time you're tempted to explain yourself or defend your actions, take a moment to ask, is this battle worth my energy? Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Choose peace, choose wisdom, and reclaim your power. Stay with me till the end of this video. I'm about to share more on how silence can transform your approach to conflict. Don't miss it. Have you ever found yourself entangled in a conflict that seems to drain you emotionally and spiritually? Maybe it's an argument with a friend, a disagreement with a colleague, or even a misunderstanding with a loved one. In those moments, it's easy to think that the real issue lies with the person in front of you, their words, actions, or attitudes. But the truth is far more complex than that. The real conflict, as the Bible reminds us, is not with flesh and blood, but with spiritual forces at work behind the scenes. In Ephesians 6:12, we are told, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." This verse offers a powerful insight into the true nature of conflict. It tells us that the battles we face are not always as they appear on the surface. The issues we argue about, the hurt we feel, the offenses that come against us, these are often driven by spiritual forces. Forces like resentment, fear, bitterness, and pride are at work, influencing the actions and behaviors of those around us. It's important to recognize that every person you encounter is fighting their own spiritual battle. They may be carrying unresolved wounds, deep fears, insecurities, or unresolved anger. And when these spiritual wounds go unaddressed, they often manifest in negative, destructive behaviors. So, when we engage in conflict with others, we're not just interacting with their thoughts and emotions. We are often confronting the spiritual forces influencing their actions. When we truly understand this, it transforms the way we respond to conflict. Instead of reacting in anger or frustration, we learn to see the situation through spiritual eyes. We stop blaming people and start identifying the spiritual forces at play. This shift in perspective frees us from taking things personally. We no longer feel the need to defend ourselves or fight against someone who may be unwittingly controlled by forces they can't even see or understand. This wisdom helps us preserve our peace. It empowers us to remain grounded and calm, no matter how intense the conflict may feel. Instead of allowing ourselves to be dragged into battles that are not our own, we choose to stand firm in God's peace and wisdom, knowing that He is our ultimate defender. The wisdom of silence, your most powerful shield. There's an old saying, silence is golden, but in the midst of conflict, silence can often feel like a sign of weakness. We are trained by the world to believe that we must always defend ourselves, speak up for our rights, and ensure that our voices are heard. But what if, instead of speaking, we chose silence? Not as a passive retreat, but as an active defense of our peace and spiritual authority. Silence is one of the most powerful weapons we have in spiritual warfare. It's not about avoiding confrontation or shying away from difficult conversations. It's about discerning which battles are worth our energy and which ones are not. By choosing silence, we protect our peace, preserve our energy, and avoid being drawn into unnecessary conflicts. In many situations, the enemy's greatest weapon is distraction. He tries to pull us into fruitless debates, pointless arguments, and endless justifications. He wants to provoke us into reacting emotionally, defending ourselves in ways that only drain us. But when we choose silence, we declare that we will not give in to these distractions. We refuse to be manipulated into fighting battles that do not serve our purpose or our spiritual growth. Proverbs 17:28 tells us, "Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent." This verse speaks volumes about the power of silence. When we choose to hold our tongue, we are not displaying weakness, but exercising wisdom. We are choosing to maintain control over our emotions and actions. In the heat of conflict, saying nothing often speaks louder than any words we could offer. In silence, we stand firm in our authority and refuse to be pulled into distractions that will ultimately leave us spiritually depleted. Think about the example of Jesus when he was brought before Pilate. He was falsely accused, and yet he chose to remain silent. In that silence, he wasn't backing down or giving up. He was affirming that his purpose was greater than any earthly defense. His silence was a powerful statement of trust in God's plan. And just as Jesus did, we too can choose silence as a form of spiritual strength. We can choose to let God handle the situation, knowing that He is our ultimate defender, recognizing when you're engaging with spiritual forces, one of the most important tools in avoiding unnecessary conflict is the ability to discern when the source of opposition is spiritual in nature. We've all encountered people who seem to react irrationally, whose anger feels disproportionate to the situation, or whose words sting more than they should. In these moments, it's essential to pause and ask, what is really happening here? The truth is, we are often not just engaging with a person's emotions, opinions, or words. We are engaging with spiritual forces at work behind the scenes. These forces, whether pride, fear, resentment, or jealousy, can deeply influence how a person behaves. When we begin to recognize these spiritual forces, we stop taking the conflict personally and start addressing the root of the issue, the unseen spiritual battle at play. This understanding is not only liberating, but it also helps us maintain peace. Instead of becoming emotionally entangled in an argument, we can step back and approach the situation with clarity. We recognize that our true struggle is not with the person in front of us, but with the spiritual forces influencing their actions. By responding with grace and wisdom, we can avoid being dragged into emotional turmoil. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." This verse helps us see that the true battle is not with people, but with the unseen forces behind their behavior. When we understand this, we can respond with peace, knowing that God is our ultimate strength in the fight. The dangers of explaining yourself to the wrong people. Have you ever tried to explain yourself to someone who simply wasn't willing to listen? No matter how carefully you chose your words, it felt as though they were misinterpreted or ignored entirely. In the end, you were left feeling misunderstood, frustrated, and drained. This is the danger of speaking to the wrong people. Not everyone is ready to hear the truth, and not everyone is deserving of your explanation. Some people, whether through pride, insecurity, or spiritual blindness, will not understand, no matter how clearly you communicate. And when you try to justify yourself to them, you often end up in a spiral of frustration and emotional exhaustion. Proverbs 29:11 tells us, "A fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back." This wisdom highlights the importance of knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. We are under no obligation to explain ourselves to those who are not ready to listen. If we do, we risk wasting our time, energy, and peace on people who will not value what we have to offer. Just as Jesus often refrained from explaining himself to his accusers, we too must learn to discern when silence is the wisest course of action. There is no need to defend ourselves when our words will only be twisted or ignored. In those moments, silence becomes our shield, protecting our peace, our energy, and our integrity, the spiritual price of speaking to the wrong people. When we speak to someone who is spiritually compromised, we run the risk of engaging in a battle that was never ours to fight. Words are powerful. They have the potential to heal, to bring light, and to set the captives free. But when those words are offered to someone who is not spiritually prepared to receive them, they can be wasted, misunderstood, or even turned against us. In Matthew 7:6, Jesus tells us, "Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces." These words are a powerful reminder that our wisdom, our truth, and our vulnerability are sacred. They are pearls, precious and valuable, and they should not be cast before those who are spiritually unprepared to appreciate them. The spiritual price of speaking to the wrong people is high. It drains your energy, steals your peace, and leaves you feeling emotionally depleted. Worse yet, it can lead to unnecessary conflict, robbing you of the spiritual focus and clarity that you need to live out your calling. Not everyone is worthy of the pearls you carry, and not everyone will receive them with the reverence they deserve. As we walk through life, we must learn to discern when to speak and when to remain silent. We must protect the sacred things we carry and refuse to cast them before those who will trample on them. In doing so, we preserve our peace, our energy, and our spiritual authority. And in choosing silence, we allow God to fight on our behalf, trusting that He will bring about His will in His perfect time. In the end, the lesson is simple. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Not everyone deserves your words. Silence is more than just a defense mechanism. It's a tool of spiritual power. It's a way of guarding your heart, preserving your peace, and choosing your battles wisely. So the next time you find yourself caught in an argument, questioning whether you should speak up or defend yourself, ask yourself this: is this battle worth my energy? And if the answer is no, then choose silence. Protect your peace, protect your heart, and focus on what truly matters. If you found this message empowering, share it with others who might need to hear it. Let's all embrace the strength of silence and walk in the wisdom that protects our peace.